I'm Al McFarlane. Welcome to The Conversation with Al McFarlane. Today is November 4th, 2022. Minutes away, hours away, a couple of days away from a historic moment in our national and local community fabric, that is the midterm elections. And though today's program we call the Healing Circle, and we typically operate with the talking stick after direction from our colleague and partner, Dr. Bravada, Garrett-Akinsanya. Today, I want to deviate a little bit and go straight to sort of the urgency of the moment, the topic at hand, and discuss the political environment that we're in right here in Minnesota right now. I'm pleased to have my friend and colleague and the person who represents me in the Minnesota Senate, Senator Bobby Joe Champion. Bobby Joe, good afternoon. And also Brenda Gray is here. Brenda, how are you? Thank you for being here. Senator Champion, how you doing?
I'm doing nicely. Thank you for having me. And it's always so great to be on with Brenda Lyle-Gray as well.
Well, thank you. I wanted to start off today by asking you to describe the moment we're in. And let me be clear with my audiences here. My objective here is to encourage our people to vote, to recognize the power, the sanctity, the necessity of our voice, and our vote is one of the tools to do that. So with that invitation, Senator Bobby Joe Champion, talk about that, if you would, to motivate and push our people to do our job.
Well, you know what? I always start by, first of all, saying thank you. And I start by saying this: bad officials are elected when good people don't vote. Bad officials are elected when good people don't vote. That is what the urgency of the moment dictates. When you think in terms of midterms, you know, people say, what are midterms? It's usually the midway point between a presidential election. And the significance of this is because midterms is usually where there's low voter turnout. So if you're looking at trying to really insert yourself into the policy discussion or get people, either elected or unelect someone, is usually doing midterm, because there's always a drop off, because most people don't know that it's election time. Mm-hmm. But this election is so very important because it sets the direction of our state, for an example, because the governor's on the ballot, I'm on the ballot, the rest of the legislature is on the ballot, and then our constitutional officers are on the ballot. And when I use the term constitutional officers, I mean Attorney General, I also mean the state auditor, the Secretary of State. Those are just some of the other constitutional auditors, the constitutional officers that I'm talking about. So we also know that there's been a lot of misinformation that's been put out this election cycle. People have been playing on the fears of us, saying things about like inflation, as if on a state level you have anything to do with that, right? You're not dealing with OPEC, right? And you're not dealing with those folks who are price gouging, although we have a state Attorney General in Keith Ellison who has been on the forefront of having these discussions, even litigating on behalf of our state. So when you think in terms of some of the misinformation, such as public safety, there's been things put out there that are just wrong. The Attorney General's office has nothing to do with whatever challenges we're experiencing around public safety. In fact, he's been a great advocate to say, hey, Flea Farm, if you are selling guns and you're being irresponsible, we're going to hold you responsible. Hey, bad landlord in North Minneapolis, if you are not providing quality housing for individuals and charging them a boatload of money, then there's going to be a problem. Hey, business owners at the corner of Broadway and Lendale, if you're not making sure people are safe, then it's a problem, right? So there's been a number of things that folks have done, and they've been ridiculed by their opponents to say they're not doing something that they are in fact doing. But all it is to all that is strategically put out there in order to do is to stop you from going to the polls. If you can be disenchanted, or you feel like your vote doesn't count or matter, then some people will say, why should I go? Well, in fact, every vote counts and every vote matters. I always use the example of our wonderful person, Hollis Winston, who's running again, but when he ran the last election cycle, he lost by 2 votes.
Two
So
votes.
it's just 2 votes. If his neighbors had just gone to the polls, he would be a mayor of that wonderful city right now today. So it's urgent. We see polls that suggest that our beloved, Keith Ellison is behind in the polls, and we know polls are only polls, right? Turnout matters. If you get up and you go and you allow your voice to be heard, we can pull him through, pull the governor through, pull the other folks or Democrats that I support. Now, people can vote any way that they want, but I want to make sure that we understand that we cannot afford to have someone who replaces, let's say, the attorney general, for an example, who has 0 courtroom experience. He has no experience, right? And what's on his agenda is not the things we believe to be important around consumer protection or protecting our seniors. Listen, I often say, if you're not at the table, then you're on the menu.
That's the message I heard you say loud and clear last week. You were addressing members of the community as part of Stair Steps Town Hall on the I-252, I-94 exchange development, one where they were inviting the community to step up to the table of civic decision. And you were also there making that same argument, telling people that if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. I have here on the screen a wonderful, powerful image that's the cover of our paper coming up with Anika Robbins, your friend and mine, who's promoting the same thing we're talking about, and that is Black people voting. She's created Black Votes Matter in Minnesota and a voting guide that directs people there. I wanted people to see that and to say that all of us are in this together trying to ensure and get our people to focus on voting. But I wanted to also show our endorsements, and you can speak to them. I don't know if you see them on the page there or not.
I do.
I can make that bigger. And there are 2 articles on our front page that have to do with the things you just talked about. The top article, January 6th organizers back Attorney General Ellison's opponent with racist ad campaign. Talk about that. What's that mean? That came to me from a former legislator who was on the program with you up at the church. I'm having a blank on his name at the moment.
Let's see, a former legislator does at the church. I can't.
Myron Orfield. Myron sent me that.
Professor, the great professor, Myron.
Professor Myron. And then the second article, DFL complaint alleges Schultz ads violate campaign finance rules. As a lawyer, talk about both of those ideas, if you would, in a few minutes.
Well, when you think in terms of who's supporting who, you also get a good indication as to a person's value system by who supports them, right? So not only do we think about the January 6th folks who, created the insurgent and deny the impact or the legitimacy of our elections, they also question and sought to destroy our democracy. So not only are we talking about them, I read an article the other day with the National Rifle Association who indicates who they support and who they have given an F to. Well, why is that important? Because if you have a candidate, for an example, Schultz and the others, who are getting high marks from the National Rifle Association, that usually means you are not going to do anything in order to deal with gun violence. Or how do we make sure that there are universal background checks, or doing other things in order to fight for everyday folks, so that we are not always being subjected to, mass shootings and high opportunities of crime in our communities because of those guns in our communities. There's been no movement, right? And what the federal government is doing, they're pushing a number of different things to the states. And by all definition, and information that has been provided up to this date, so many of the state legislatures across the country are GOP led. So that means you're not going to get any action on the federal level, and they're going to continue to dismantle, for lack of a better word, all your other rights on the state level, whether that is a woman's right to choose, whether that's making sure that we are protected from gun violence and folks having access to guns. And realize this, our young people have more access to guns than they do even a scholarship to go to college. You know, people talk about, like I saw and connected to what you're saying, Al, on these commercials, they're showing, first of all, carjackings and only showing our picture, and trying to equate crime with us, right? Gun violence with us, right?
Not new, and still wrong. Been wrong, still wrong.
And we should be enraged by that, and we should show our disagreement or our disenchantment by getting out to vote, because when people do things like that, then they're telling you what their value system is all about and how they see you.
And they really don't care what we think. They don't care. So you got one thing to do, and that's to vote them out or block them from getting in. And if you don't do that, it's really on you. It's not on them.
Listen, they're only going to try to cater to or do what I call dog whistle politics to people who they believe aligns with them. What that should also say to us is what we must do in order to protect the values that we align with, right? So that means you make your voice heard by voting, and you use your feet in order to get to that poll, because you can vote right now today. You don't even have to wait in the city of Minneapolis if you want to vote right now today. You can go to 980 Hennepin or go to the Urban League or just other places, and you can vote right now today. I, in fact, make sure my sons who are away at college, you get in the ballot, you're voting from Colorado and other places, because it's too serious for us to sit around and play games.
Bobby and I always go vote early, so we've done our voting already, but it's a priority for us, obviously. You know, so the other piece on this paper that I had up was the DFL filing a formal complaint against the Schultz campaign for what they allege are campaign's finance rules violations. Go into that if you would, explain what that is, because what I say is that the Republicans have spent through Minnesota for Freedom $847,000 so far. I understand another $300-400 is on the way for this weekend in campaigns that wrongly accuse, besmirch, try to derail the work, history, and the effectiveness of Attorney General Ellison. And the right thing to do is what they did, and that is to make the complaint. The problem is the mechanics and the timetable means that will be heard after the election, but the damage is being done right now. But talk about the process.
Now, it's a business decision. Yeah. Right. Yeah. You know, like some corporations make a business decision that says we're going to get so much litigation about certain things, whether it's design, product, or whatever. Right. And then they say we'll spend so much time fighting those off, but at the same time, we're going to still be raking in millions and millions and millions of dollars. Right. So when something finally happens, right, it's way after they have bankrolled themselves. That's the same thing politically that's going on. What happens is they know there are things that are being said that's untrue. They also know that people won't dig deep into whether it's true or false. They hear it and they hear it again. There are 1,000 commercials, the same commercial that comes on every single day, and the same 2 commercials come back to back every single day. I watch it like clockwork.
Yep.
It's the carjacking one, and then you know what the other one is when they said that the criminals from prison likes Ellison, right? When first of all, we know that no one from the GOP side is going to accept a collect call from anyone, and then and they're not going to collect one from prison. Right. And those who are in prison can't vote, so we already know that's
and they're not making calls.
And they're not making calls, right? Let's just be clear about that. So, Al, what you're talking about is a business decision that they make around politics. We can spew something out there. People are not going to research it and ask any questions, and people will repeat what they hear that is done repetitively, right? So repetition is the order of the day. The more I say it, the more you hear it, the more you just think it's true, just because you've heard it both on television as well as on social media platforms.
Donald Trump 101.
That's right. And what we have to do is speak against it and speak to it and speak loudly and boldly and as often as humanly possible. Because if we don't, we will have people out there saying things that are totally untrue. Because guess what? Like you said, Al, even if after the election they say, oh, he shouldn't have said that, guess what? The damage is already done.
That's right.
That's a business decision, and political one.
A great way of characterizing that. Senator Champion, you saw my endorsements here. I wanted to let people know, and I told you this already, though, that you fortunately are running unopposed, as is your counterpart in the House, Esther Agbaje. The two of you are fortunate enough, and not so much, and it's fortunate, it's not luck. You've worked so hard that a viable candidate has not emerged this time, but some will in the future. And at this time, you and she both are unopposed. And so that's why there's no endorsement. You've been my endorsed candidate and you have my endorsement all the time. But because of limited real estate on the front page, we went with the people that had contest and listed that. So I wanted you to know that, and our viewers to know that you have always had our support from Inside News. You know that.
Well, thank you so much. Yes, you did tell me that. And yes, I understand that to be true. And just so you know, Al, I think it's so important that I run like I'm 6 points behind.
There you go.
Even if no one's behind me. Right? I'm out door knocking. I'm out, going to churches, and I'm reminding people of the importance of getting out to vote. I'm at community events. I'm everywhere, right? Because our people in our community deserves that, right? So I don't wait until I need a vote from someone. My hope is when the election comes up, and if somebody's running against me, that the person says, well, who are you running against? And if they say, do you know Bobby Joe Champion? Do I not only know him, I support him. And guess what? They don't have to get to know me when it's election time. I'm always around. And thank you, Al, and thank you, Insight, for all you do, because you are a visionary. You make sure we are informed, and those endorsements that you've articulated, I wholeheartedly support those. And we have to make sure that not only we get to the polls, Al, our friends get to the polls, our neighbors get to the polls. It's too serious for us to sit idly by, praying, hoping, wishing that everything turns out well. And the last thing I'll say, Al, is I don't want any of us to wake up on November 9th and say, I wish I would have voted on November.
I could have, and I should have. Before you leave, I want to, Brenda, you don't know that Senator Bobby Joe Champion is a world-renowned musical force. He's the creator and director, founder of the Excelsior. What's the full name?
And then we cut it down and just said Excelsior.
Excelsior, right? They've produced award-winning records. They produce wonderful shows. And Bobby is a master choir director. Watching him is like watching a work of art in performance. But the sound and the visual, high impact, high energy, a thing of beauty. Now, you're doing your annual event coming up around the Christmas season. Take a minute to tell people about that.
Yeah, so all of you are invited to Music for the Holidays. Music for the Holidays is our gift to the community. Great artists, just a cross-section of artists from Tanya Hughes Kendrick to Sarah Renner to Stokely to choirs to just a number of people who come together after folks have dinner first, because dinner starts at 5:30, and this year, this is breaking news, that we're going to have dinner, a sit-down dinner at the Minneapolis Hilton from 5:30 to 7, and then we'll go across the street to Orchestra Hall, where great music will happen. And guess what, Brenda? It's all free. They don't have to pay not 1 cent, and it's great for families and friends to come together, no matter where you live. So it's not just for North Minneapolis, South Minneapolis. It's for folks who live in Medina, Edina, Plymouth, out of state. But it's a great time for us to come together, and we would hope that you would join us and put on your calendar December 22nd. That is the day. And we're also got the great Fred Still, who's going to be with us.
Awesome. Wonderful. Right? Wonderful. You're muted, Brenda.
Oh, okay. I said I'm 3,000 miles away. I wished I could.
Listen,
I'm in the mountains of Santa Fe, New Mexico.
Well, guess what we're going to do for you, Brenda? We are also thinking about live streaming it, right? So
that would
we
be
want to make sure all
great.
our little dollars come together in order to make this happen. And we want to
That
live
would be
stream it, so no
great.
matter where you are in the country, you can also be with us. And Al, I want to thank Insight for just being a media partner and a good friend and ally. I so appreciate you. I really, really do.
We're honored for the opportunity. I know you got to run. Hopefully, your schedule will allow you to come back on either Monday or Tuesday, because we want to follow this election down to the last vote, the last minute, encouraging our people to show up and to do what we have to do. Bobby
And listen,
Senator Champion, thank you so much. Go ahead.
And you can also go to mnvotes.gov. So mnvotes.gov. That's where you can go if you want to know where your polling site is. If you want to know where you can go right now. You can even get a sample ballot, so you can kind of fill it out and do your research about it. So when you go into the polls, you already got your sheet, right? And we want to invite you to do that. And thank you again, Al. Thank you, Brenda. I'm sorry that I have to go, but I look forward to seeing you on Monday or Tuesday.
All right. Thank you, Bobby Joe. We'll see you. Senator Bobby Joe Champion. What a guy. What a guy. I see
Man of many talents.
Well, let's bring in two more people here that are just the very best. Dr. Bravada, Garrett-Akinsanya, and Brother Lyle-Akinsanya. How y'all doing?
Fine. My hero and hero. Look at him.
We deviated from the format because of the urgency of the moment. I know that you're okay with that, because this is critical conversation, and really this is about healing. This is about healing, and being active, present, and exercising your voice is an act of health and healing. So let me start, though, Dr. B, in welcoming you and Yelly. And as always, I love the protocols we use when we engage each other. So I'm going to turn it over to you.
Oh, okay. Well, thank you so much, Brother Al. I really enjoyed hearing Bobby Joe Champion do what he does, champion for being isn't it ironic that his name is Champion? Because he is that, he fulfills that, and he fights for us all, and he's much, much loved in the community. So I do know that someone could try to challenge him, but you know how we say, and I wish somebody would think they can come beat Bobby Joe. I wish they would. So for
you,
but he's right to take it to be seriously running as if he's behind, because you'd almost think that would be the case for Keith. Keith had such celebrity, particularly because of what he did in the Derek Chauvin trial, handling the aftermath of the murder of George Floyd, particularly the same with the Brooklyn Center, Brooklyn Park issues. And then he's done these litigations against companies that are putting citizens at risk.
That's right.
But he's done such a good job, right? He's called the most virulent and vile opposition imaginable to marshal their forces, and they are doing more than a full court press. They're very public and above ground, but they're being very deceptive, mean, and ruthless beneath that. And this is going to be Keith Ellison's run for his life. It really is. So, so you can't take it for granted. Yeah.
That's right. And so part of the job of us as citizens is to vote. But those of us who can, we should donate to campaigns. And even if you don't have the money, donate your time. So even though I may contribute financially, I may verbally tell people, let's vote for this person. Do you know I sign up for everybody to volunteer to call? And Yelly and I, we call, we get the phone hung up on us sometimes, but it doesn't matter. I just keep persisting, because it may be just that one person that I talk to that day that makes that final vote to push it over to the side, that tipping point. So I call with hope, and I call it enthusiasm, because there's nothing that they can bring to me about folks like Keith or Rena Moran or other people I know that are running for offices. It's nothing anybody can bring to me that I can't rebuke and challenge and refute with the facts. I can refute it because I know who I'm talking about, and I know them not just from their spirit and their words, but from their actions. So I think this healing circle, as you said, taking the act of voting is an act of defiance that says that you should not vote. You should not be there. You don't count. It don't matter. Your people will never get ahead. That one vote is an act of defiance. And so we should certainly, and I love that insight page, we should certainly adhere to doing it. So today, as we sit in circle, as we always do on Fridays this time, we sit summoning the power of our ancestors and the shoulders on which we stand. We sit here fueled by the energy of the now, the opportunity to make things different right now. And we honor our elders as we do in this circle, especially you and my sister, Brenda, the legacy that you've left in so many lives, the power you've made even in the presence of the now, bringing your history, your knowledge, your skills, your heart, your soul, your present, and your spirit to this space. So we honor our elders because they're closest to our ancestors. And we honor our ancestors because they are closest to the Creator. And we honor our Creator because he, she, it, they, the big I am, fills the whole world and created everything in it. So in our circle, we sit here in honor of each other's life. We use the concept of consubstantiation, that every living thing is connected and that we're connected to the earth, the sky, to each other. We use that belief that we are bigger than we even know because I am, because we are, and we are because I am. So we bring into this circle all of that positive hope, energy, and sense of overcoming. We bring into this circle the knowledge that in the center, we all have equal access. No matter where we come from, we're all equal in this circle, and we have access to the center, which is the source of power. We use our talking stick because as African people, we are orderly, and we share that information. We share the power of the voice, and we pass that talking stick. Even though we're not personally together, we pass it to each other virtually. So that is a space that we create for healing, so that as we sit there, we know around us, behind us, in front of us is safety. And we're most guarded by the love that's around us. So with that, I will pass the talking stick to my precious partner, Lyle-Akinsanya. Here you go, Mr. Yele.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. By the way, my name is Garrett-Akinsanya, not Agbaje, so that's, I don't know how Agbaje got on my name. My name is Garrett-Akinsanya. Maybe we can have that corrected.
You can fix that if you would on your
screen.
Screen, I
but
think.
He can do it now. Go ahead.
Okay, but anyway, I'll be Agbaje for the next few minutes.
Okay. There we go.
See, I'll say this much. This is the first election in a long time that I'm truly concerned.
Mm-hmm.
The reason I'm very concerned is because I don't think the Democratic Party really knows how to fight.
Mm.
We don't. Democratic Party doesn't know how to fight. When you are fighting for the goodness of this country, and when you're fighting for democracy of America, and you are fighting with racist, socialists, or not even socialists, people who are anti-democratic in their practices and value, and they've already
fascists.
Thank you very much.
Mm-hmm.
And you're fighting against fascists who engage in lies, who engage in anti-democratic principles and practices. Then you need to take it to another level. But the Democratic Party always falls short of really taking it to the Republicans when they need to. When we got home yesterday from an event, I actually got promotions, flyers,
mm-hmm.
basically saying that the Biden administration and Democratic Party are engaging in racial discriminations against white people.
And
then there's Asians, and there's basically saying we white people and Asians, we are being discriminated against by the Democratic Party, so you need to vote Republican. Now, if you have any common sense, and that's the kind of people you are fighting with, one would think that we'll change our strategy or tactics, but we haven't. The Democratic Party is always thinking that they're fighting a fair fight. When somebody brings a gun to a fight and you have sticks, how are you going to win? How do you even stand a chance of winning? This is the same practice at the national level. But what I've always believed in, it's that there are more people of goodwill in this country and that they will do what is right. But this is the first election that I really don't think I believe that. And that's going to happen because of the so much lies that have been public, and they are so bold about telling this lie, and they being blatantly just racist, and then pitching one person against the other. But this is what I'm going to say, and I hope that by November 9, we have Keith Ellison as Attorney General, we have Walz as Governor, and we have the House and the Senate. Because if the Republicans end up taking the Senate and the House, even if we have Walz as the governor, we're not going anywhere for the next 2 years. They're going to stop everything that he's trying to do. So if you are a voter out there and you see these lies being perpetrated by the Republican Party, and you see all these lies being perpetrated in radio shows, on commercials, and you think you are not concerned or your life is not going to be affected, well, you don't know what you're doing and you don't know what you're talking about. So you need to go vote. We have already voted. Not only do you need to go vote, you need to carry your friends, even your enemies, take them to the voting booth and get them to vote to preserve what is right and what is godly and what is just reasonable. Because the Republicans have already shown us with Roe versus Wade, they've already shown us with everything they said they're going to do. When they said they're going to do it, you need to believe them.
That's right.
And if you don't believe them and vote against their
affirmative action on the block right now.
On the block, if you don't vote against that, then please, for the next 2 years, you need to keep quiet because, like Bobby Champion said, your vote will change everything. If you cannot tell people you are a liar, we don't believe in you, then you will have yourself to blame. And I don't want to be blaming anybody. And I definitely don't want to be blaming myself. So everybody of goodwill needs to go out and vote. Because like they said, politics is the allocation of resources. It's about who gets what, when, and how. If you do not vote and the Republican gets in positions of authority, they're going to take your rights away. They've already told you that. They've already demonstrated that with Roe versus Wade and a bunch of other things that they have done. So this is an election of a lifetime, period. It's more important than anything that we've ever done. And just like Bobby Champion was saying, this is the time that we have a drop-off. It's not a presidential election. But then this is more important than a presidential election. Because if they have the opportunity to change things now, you can kiss democracy bye for a long time.
Who do you want to pass the talking stick?
Now I'm going to pass the stick on to my sister, my lovely sister, Brenda Lyle-Gray.
I was just wanting to say, what a powerful couple. My goodness. Bravo. I just have a couple things. I didn't get my one question to Bobby Joe, but I'm sure my boss will get it too. The headlines was that people are afraid to go to the polls or to be posters because of all of the threats. So they're feeling that that is really going to cut the trafficking. And so I thought about Tyrone Terrell and, Reverend Babington and the ministers or whatever, because if that is the case, security is going to, but they're saying all across the country that is the case. So, and then Jimmy Kimball was on very early this morning, It was a recording I didn't get a chance to see. And the ABC consulted with him, told him he was going to have to shut down his rhetoric, that he had lost half of his fan base. So that's how intense these people are. And I'm like, Yelly, I don't know what's going to happen Tuesday. I'm real uncomfortable with what they're going to try to pull, because they're loading up trucks all around the country, and they're not holding a Dr. Pepper.
That's right.
So we have to be vigilant. They were boycotting Till.
Yep.
They didn't want it shown. It's like Mitch McConnell holding his little poster or whatever saying guilt. They didn't want to see it, and they didn't want anyone else to see it. I'm like Yelly now. This is, it's intense. So, prayer circle, I told Al, I said, I just want to see the Mandela lines. Remember all of the lines that were just, and they waited days, weeks in order to put that vote out. And Stacey Abrams had a similar one, so, and they're going for the jugular. So much corruption. And we mentioned it yesterday, for the Latinas or the Latinx or whatever, down in Miami County, this Republican woman is putting out all of these lies in Spanish. So no one else can understand it. And so if that's the only language that they know, that's what they're going to vote. So someone mentioned it. Al had so many powerful interviews this week, but somebody mentioned it. They said the devil is in this mix.
Yes.
Yeah. And you know what? I don't think we waited too late to really get out there. When was Dr. Chavez and his 10 million votes? He started that back in March. I mean, we haven't been just sitting, but that's a lot of power to fight.
It is.
And especially when you have been the one race who was kicked in the hiney with COVID, and our hearts are still breaking with the image of George Floyd.
That's right.
We're still traumatized. I'm traumatized and I'm not even there. I'm mad because they have all this money and there's no square, but that's none of my business.
What's your
But,
business? It's our business. Yeah.
Everybody's busy.
It's this is different, Al, than what we faced in the 60s. And that's because we had support. We were out there on the front line. What did Don Maxwell say? I don't like the food at Pooch's, but you're going to serve me. I mean, we were out there, but they didn't have those guns. And that's what they have now. And the only thing I can pray is that there's no bloodshed. Because I don't think we could take that trauma anymore. Our children have been through enough.
Yeah.
Teachers have been through enough. Parents have been through enough.
Yeah.
But people have forgotten to pray too. They just, Al, I can't get Mother Atum off my heart. I really can't. When she said, I wake up, and she was so calm, and she said, and I put my hand on my heart, and I said, thank you, God, that I am. That's when I ended your piece. I love that piece with Elizabeth. That was so good. Just that mystical ambiance that I described about that lady and her work.
From South Africa, yeah.
Yeah, Mother Atum said, because I am. So, I'm going to take the I am, and I'm just going to continue to fight, and especially for children and my children. And, we can't give up this fight. I think of those freedom fighters on that bus burning.
That's right.
And who was the general, Al? After he came back from all of the war fronts and got on the bus with his uniform on, and they told him that he had to give up a seat or something. And you interviewed him. He was 100 years old or more.
Ray.
Yeah. I thought of him, and that was when Dr. Irma said that her uncle, who had served, is so disappointed now with having to give his life possibly for this country, and then to have them be the way they are. This hate, I just never seen this type of hatred.
Ray Robinson was a fellow Texan. He lived here in Minneapolis, but he's moved back to Texas. But he's 100 years old. His birthday's coming up in December or 1st of January or so. But he was a Buffalo soldier. He was trained by Buffalo soldiers, number one, but he served in World War II and was part of the Allied effort for the liberation of Italy. And he was part of the forces that that movie was made about. It was a movie that showed Black soldiers in Luverne, or I can't think of the exact name of the town, but it was an expedition that they sent. It was an impossible mission. So they sacrificed the Black soldiers where there was likelihood of a massacre, but they were going to use our bodies for fodder. And he was one of the people on the front. He was a forward spotter, I think, and a machine gunner. And I talked to one of his colleagues here at the Veterans Association or American Legion. And, this is a white guy who said he kind of reviews and reveres Ray Robinson almost like a father. But he said, when he talked about the medals that Ray had received, he said, I can't imagine what he had to do to earn these medals. Not that he was doing it to earn the medals, but the medals acknowledge what he did to save lives and to protect and to secure the mission. So Ray Robinson, an enlisted man, not a general, but the point you're making, Brenda, is that you put your life at risk and you come back and you get told you can't ride the bus, you can't get a job, and still we don't turn our backs on the country and still we defend democracy when there are forces in this society that still have no intent of acknowledging our humanity, or that are really hell-bent in a way that's petty and jealous, I think. It's deprived and therefore fearful of our ascent, and therefore motivated to do the damage they do because they have not matured and found a way to find humanity within themselves. One of the people we talked to, Dr. B, on one of our other programs was a sister from, I think she was from Colombia, or maybe, I think it was her, talked about, we had used the term white supremacy.
Oh,
and
yeah.
she said, no, not white supremacy. I call it white savagery.
Yep.
There's nothing supreme about it.
Yep.
It's savagery that they elevate, and they really are comfortable with you calling it and with the world regarding it as supremacy, because even though it's said in a negative context, it still has an ambience of power to it. And so she said, I don't call it white supremacy, I call it white savagery, and let them own that, because that's what it is.
What was interesting about her, she's here on a Humphrey Fellow. and she's the only Black. And she was talking about running in the park, and she was just like having a good time and saying hello, and none of the whites greeted her at all. And she was like, excuse me? And her resume was what, 4 pages long, boss? I mean, she had so much background to be so young and so powerful, and she's trilingual. I mean, she knows so many languages, and she was just tough. She said they were so unfriendly, and she just didn't get it. And I'm saying, welcome to what used to be the United States of America.
It's so unfortunate that, when Trump was running, a lot of people didn't take him seriously. And when he won, a lot of people, including me, we didn't realize it was going to do so much damage that it's going to take decades to fix. He gave validation to savagery. He gave validation to racism. He gave validation to fascism. Every single person who was scared, afraid, ashamed about all these things that they are in the closet, he gave them validation to come out and be bold about it. Mm-hmm. I didn't think it was going to be this bad, but it's terribly bad. Mm-hmm. And if America is the America that a lot of people want to come to and be free and claim to be a free country, well, maybe we'll still have some sort of savings to happen on the 8th, that the country will be saved from these fascist, ignorant, stupid, racist, savage people that we have all over the country. So if you care about democracy, you care about your right, if you are a woman, you are a human being, you need to go vote and vote the Republicans out, because they do not wish you well. Mm-hmm. Please, they do not wish you well. They've demonstrated what they are going to do, what they have done, and what they will do. If they I'm not going to even accept the fact that they could win. But the next 2 years is going to be brutal for everybody throughout America if they have any chance to rule or to administer, to administer any policies in this country. They've already said what they're going to do. They've demonstrated it. So if you care about this country and you care about your life and you care about your health, you care about your own right, go vote them out, period. And a lot of people don't think that, all these polls that they say, oh, the Republicans are gaining ground, they are gaining ground. I think they're all, frankly speaking, I think they're falsified. And I believe that a lot of people who are going to vote, who are going to make this a victory on Tuesday, they're not talking to them because they don't want to talk to them. Mm-hmm. Look at the numbers of people who have already voted compared to even the highest number that we experienced in 2016 or 2000. We've already smashed those numbers. So a lot of these people that are voting, I believe they are voting to preserve democracy and preserve democratic principles in this country.
So let me have the talking stick, because thank you. Because one of the things I wanted to say as I was listening is that there's a psychological process that's going on. And it's a really subtle one, but not so subtle if you're aware of it. The first one is called modern day or aversive racism. And the aversion is to talk about race and hide behind some other thing. Mm-hmm. The model about aversive racism says that some people call it implicit bias, but it's even worse than that, because there's a conscious and unconscious component mm-hmm. to avoiding the discussion of race. And what happens is people find the ability to make policies something they can hide behind. They can say, we don't need schools that are supported. We don't need education money, knowing that very policy lifts up people of color who have been underserved by those things. We don't need insurance, knowing very well that the people who are uninsured or underinsured are usually the people who are among the poorest people in our country. So this idea of aversive racism is when white people hide behind anything else that they can blame their behavior on. One of them is the vote doesn't count. One of them is, they're going to do you wrong. One of them is they're trying to be more, take your rights away. One of them is those people of color, they're all dangerous and you're going to be unsafe. Your children's going to get killed at school. Your wife is going to get raped. They're going to take your car and your house and your job. Those are the aversive racism pieces of language. And only those who are wise enough to see it can recognize it for what it is, flat out lies. That's flat out lies. And then the second component is the inability not to share power. The inability to share power. Power sharing means we are equal, just like when we're in the circle. Anybody in this circle can have the talking stick, and their voice is recognized at that space. But if you aren't ready to share power, you want your reality to be everybody else's reality. So with that, that's what I'm saying about the talking stick. And that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying about the dysfunction, the psychological, again, mental acrobatics that it takes to be so devious and undermining of justice, of equality and equity, of flat out loving other people as your brothers and your sisters. Just all of that is that psychological combating of equality and equity. So what we got to do is make sure that we claim as a people of color, we can't claim as children of God, our right to equity, our right to voice, because it wasn't given by man, it was divinely appointed and given to us. And we need to remember that we are not going to let anyone shut our mouths, because closed mouth don't get fed. So with that, I'm going to pass the talking stick to Baba Al. I know you got something to say.
Well, I'm going to bring Brenda back in because yesterday in our program, she made reference to a guest we had earlier in the week. His name was Olufemi Ogundele, a Yoruba brother who is now the assistant chancellor, I think, at the University of California at Berkeley. And even before we went on today, Brenda was talking to me and Vash about how intensive and extensive and wonderful the interview with Brother Femi Ogundele was. And one of the things Brenda said yesterday that is still ringing in my head today, you quoting him, talked about what he described as the focus and the power of hope. So I'm going to turn the talking stick back to you, Brenda, and you can reflect on that if you would. And before I do, Yeli, I asked him to come back because I wanted to have a Yoruba discussion with him. And so I'm going to ask you at some point in time to join me in having a Yoruba discussion publicly to just talk about the culture and our presence all over the world. But Brenda?
He was just so powerful. And I'm trying to figure out, it was 10,000 words and I have to reduce it to 1,500 or less. And it was just everything that he said. And the quote was that hope is discipline. And you have to think about that. We know that just to hope for something to happen, it's not going to happen. It has to be power. It has to be action. It has to be a strategic plan. You just can't jump out there. This brother he's been to Stanford. He's been to Cornell, University of Delaware. And one of the things that really, I don't know how I'm going to do this article. I told Al I'm going to get to a point this weekend and he's going to have to chop it up because it's so many good things. And one of the things he said at Cal Berkeley, number one, there are no diversity brochures. You don't have to go someplace else to find who you are. This is what Cal State is about.
Mm-hmm.
And then they got rid of SATs and ACTs, and he's not going into neighborhoods that are dense with Blacks. He's going into neighborhoods of young people who have been disenfranchised and couldn't even think about going to a Cal State Berkeley. He is profound. And he's in a leadership program right now. And part of his charge is that he wants to make for sure that they understand that you can't admit a person or a young person who has grown up in the urban areas of Chicago where they kill 15 a day and compare that person to a country or that young person to a country club, affluent young lady that's grown up with a silver spoon.
That's right.
And just everything he said. And I was like, I could see Mari at North if she's still over there because she's so powerful. And I could just see her reading what he said to her teachers. Mm-hmm. This is what education isn't. We have to figure out what it's about today because it's different.
Let me jump back in then because we're down to the last few minutes
I'm
here.
sorry.
That's okay. No, that's great. Thank you for the, just the reflection and the comments. And it has to do, Dr. B, then with how do we move forward? The idea of hope, not as the opposite of despair, but hope as a practice, hope as a verb, hope as intent, hope as a tool, and hope as one of the mechanisms by which we bring to fruition that which we envision, and enabling us to create the kind of world that we believe we deserve and that we have the power to create. So with that, I want to ask both of you, Dr. B and Brother Yelly, to take the last couple of minutes here and both encourage and continue to clarify the moment. And that is the moment that we are in now, where we have to get up, get out, show out, and make our voices heard. So I'm going to pass the talking stick back to Brother Yelly first, and then maybe he'll pass it to you to close us out, Dr. B.
Okay, thank you, brother.
Well, thank you, brother. What I would say is this: if you are listening, or if you know somebody that needs to know or hear this message, a lot of people talk about, oh, this is something of our lifetime. This is truly the election of our life. Period. No presidential election is as important as fixing and maintaining our democracy. On Tuesday, the result on Tuesday must be affirming, let's just affirm the democracy in this country. And that means voting against everything that is Republican, that is a lie. Because when I see the level that these people are willing to go to, or to denigrate themselves and be shameless about it and not be it's terrible. So to work against that, we need to vote and carry every single person that we know who is eligible to vote to go vote. Voting is going on Monday. Voting is going on in some places right now. Go vote. Vote and vote and vote, and let's preserve our rights, our democracy, our humanity. Thank you.
Thank you. I'll take the talking stick and take its on home, because I believe that your vote is your voice. And you use that voice to stand up for the voiceless. You use that voice to stand up for those who are screaming, but nobody hears them. And so if your voice is your vote, then this is the time to shout. Mm-hmm. This is the time to step into that space, taking everybody with you that has a chance to shout. Take them with you to the polls. Take them with you to look at the paper and see who you think you should be voting for. Engage in discussions and do it now. Don't wait too long, Because if like the kids say, you wait long, you wait wrong. So use your voice as a gift of the Creator to enact change. And with that, I say, Ashe.
Ashe. Well, look, great program once again, as always. Thank you all for being here. Send a note to somebody to have them check this program out. It's on a variety of social media platforms, and to be with us every day, 5 days a week in the conversation with Al McFarlane. We'll see you next time. I am Al McFarlane. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.